What if I told you that this professional website with smooth animations, perfect mobile responsiveness, and lightning fast load times was built with a single prompt in under 30 seconds, no coding experience, no expensive developers, no monthly WordPress fee? And what if I told you your local business could have the same caliber website as Apple, Stripe, Linear, or many other professional custom coded websites, but built faster and hosted completely free? Stick around because I'm going to show you exactly how Claude Code is revolutionizing web development for. Hey, if you're new here, it's Jeff Lunt from OpKey, where we help local service businesses dominate their market online. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on the tool that I've been using that lets plumbers, dentists, and home service pros build websites that rival Fortune 500 companies without hiring a single developer. So here's the reality that most small business owners face. WordPress sites, which are the historic gold standard, cost $3,000 to $5,000 to develop, and then $50 to $200 a month to host. Generic templates end up looking like every other site in your industry. They have slow load times because of plugin bloat that kill your Google rankings. There are constant plugin problems, plugin updates, and security headaches. And in a lot of cases, you need a developer for any change, or you need to have some serious technical expertise in order to make a change, even like updating a phone number to make it click to call. Meanwhile, companies like Apple, Notion, Airbnb all have these custom coded websites. They load instantly, rank perfectly, and convert visitors into customers. And historically, those sites have cost tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop. With Claude Code, everything's changed for us as small business owners. This is Claude Code, Anthropic's new AI coding assistant. And with just a little bit of technical know-how, you can leverage this amazing tool to develop a custom coded website that rivals things like Apple or Notion or Airbnb for free. And then using some tools that we'll talk about later, you can actually host your site for free up to a certain limit, which most small businesses will never hit in terms of traffic. And if you do, you'll be happy to pay for the hosting. So let's walk through a demo of how this might work. You'll need to install an IDE, which is an integrated development environment. A lot of people these days are using Cursor. You can use their free plan. I prefer to use VS Code. That's what Cursor and Firebase Studio, Google's version, and Kira are all built on the back end of. It's an open source IDE. It's free. You can go ahead and download it. So in order to download that, you'll just look for VS Code. You'll come in here and you'll just click download. You'll select what system you're on. I'm on Mac, so I would click download. I already have it downloaded on my computer, but this is where you'd go to get VS Code. Once you have VS Code downloaded, you'll come in here and you'll open up a new file. So we'll create a new folder. So we'll come in to our documents, create a new folder, and we'll title this Plumbing Site Demo. And then go ahead and open that. Now here's where things get a little bit more complicated. So the best way to develop a site is to create what's called a project requirements document, or a PRD, in Markdown. Markdown is just a fancy word for pure text. It's the best way to import documents into an LLM if you're using ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini. If you use a Markdown document, those LLMs have an easier time understanding it. So that's what we use to create the project requirements, which in this case would be creating a site. So we're going to come into Claude, which is my favorite LLM. It's the one that I think does the best job, and say create a modern, high converting website for a local plumbing company in Salt Lake City, Utah. Create the PRD in an artifact. And depending on what LLM you're using, you'll just want this to create it in a document format. So in Claude, those are artifacts. So I'll do that specifically so that I can download it then as a Markdown file. So you'll see it's drafting the artifact here. We'll come back once that finishes. Okay, so obviously if this was my company or a client that I'm working with, I would be much more specific in terms of what my ideal customer profile is, what my unique value proposition is, so that I can get the best quality PRD for the website that I'm trying to produce. So we'll take that, you come in here, download it as a markdown, and then we'll come back into VS Code and drag, then we'll go into Finder and Downloads, we'll drag that into our project. So we'll put that into the project, and then if we go into VS Code, it will show up right here. So now we get into what is a little bit more technical. We'll need to install Claude Code. So if you come back to the Claude Code website, you can come down and see the installation thing, the installation code. So what you do is you come into Visual Studio Code and run a new terminal. Then you take this and paste it in here and run that. So for me, I've already installed it, but you can install it again. Then all that it takes to do is to launch it is just run Claude. It will ask you to sign in to your account. So this is where you'll need to come into Anthropic and you'll look at their pricing options, which are Pro, Max, or Max 20 times. For most people, the Pro is plenty for this. So this is your only cost, and you get access to Claude for your business, which has amazing other features that I'll talk about in a future video, but that you can customize to your business so that when you ask it questions, it responds in a way that's the most useful for your business, not just that generic response that you get from Gemini or Claude, which is free, or ChatGPT. So I think there's a ton of huge advantages. This will be your only ongoing cost. The $17 is an annual subscription. We currently pay for it monthly because we're trying to decide if we want to go up to the max. And so it's $20 monthly. So the cost associated with this, which is much cheaper than paying a website developer and for hosting, and you can cancel this at any time and the hosting and website will remain live. In order to make edits, unless you learn how to code or know how to code, you will need to get it back so that you can make those edits, but this is a cancelable expense once the website is up and running. So once you sign up for the Pro account, you'll come back into VS Code, you'll sign in. I've already signed in. You'll say, yes, I trust the folders, and then we will run a /init. This allows it to create a claude.md file, which it will reference for instructions. You can also update that claude.md file if there are things that you don't like about how the website's working or how Claude is working to create the website. So that becomes the base instructions. It will also reference your PRD, but having both of those work in tandem, I think is the best way to handle creating this website in the most effective way possible. So it'll ask you, the thing about Claude Code is it will always ask you if you want to make these edits or want to allow Claude to make the edits. You can hit number 1, which is yes this time, and it will continue to ask you. You can also hit number 2 and it won't ask again about those certain instances. So you will need to hit number 2 multiple times if you want Claude to not ask you any questions. Sometimes it's worth having it ask if you want to review some of the code and you feel comfortable reading code and kind of understanding what's going on. I've found that for me, so far, I haven't had any issues that weren't solved by Claude just doing its thing, so I usually just hit the 2. Okay, so now that we've got the ClaudeMD file and the PRD file, we can go ahead and there are 2 options from here. One is to go to Claude and really develop out a prompt to refine how the website is being created. I'm going to just trust that the PRD was good enough, and so we'll say create the website outlined in the and then if you hit @ you can tag a certain document. So we'll do that, and then it will start going through and creating it. So I'll come back once the initial homepage and once the initial draft has come. All right, so that's a good example of an error that can happen. So if we go back in here and say the build did not properly deploy, and I go to the local host, it says error connection refused. So you can take the error code, basically give it to Claude, and let it try and fix that. So we'll go through a few prompts and let it try and get this. Okay, so here is the site. So you can see we're missing a hero image here. We have some text issues here. Most of these issues would be solved with a better PRD and some branding. So being able to have your favicon up here, coming down here, this gray does not show up well, so picking like a red or a yellow or a blue. Again, same problem with this button. So overall though, it looks pretty templated still. So there's room for improvement, but you can see how fast this process can be. And if you want to go from a website that looks like this to a website that looks more like this with some of these animations, some hover animations, those better elements put together, it's not super difficult. The way that we were able to do this is to give Claude, when we're crafting our PRD, some examples of a website and then create a wireframe. So if we come back into Claude, I'll just show you our process for our redesign. So I gave it some of our information, gave it some of those things, walked through some questions with it. Always ask any LLM you work with. If you have any questions before proceeding, please ask those before proceeding with the assigned task. So it gave me the PRD, and then I gave it some things about the visual identity. I gave it our logos and our colors. It rewrote the product document. And then I asked it to create a wireframe. A wireframe is just HTML code that gives Claude kind of something to work off when it's trying to create the site. So this was its first attempt for us. It doesn't look great. Obviously, this is a wireframe, so you can see like these dotted lines wouldn't be in a final website, of course. It's just a way for it to have kind of a reference point. So it gave me that. I asked it to give me a couple of different options based on some of these different websites that I like the look of. So it gave me a dark option, which is super tech oriented. So you can see it gave me some of the animations. It's got, I mean, already a huge improvement just giving it that. Then it gave me a light option, which looked more like this. And if I spread this out, you'll be able to see a little better. The light option is great as well. You can see it has some animations. It's got a nice background. Actually, this isn't the finished slide. Sometimes with Claude, you do have uses limits, so this one, it needed to do a second run at it. So again, great initial options, great starting points. These are the kind of things that you can drop in with your PRD and then go through with Claude to refine some of the issues. So maybe creating an image for here, making sure that the contrast for all of your buttons is the right orientation so that you don't have buttons that are white on white. Some of those things. Those are easy to fix. So what you do is you just come back into Claude and say some of the contrast is off. There are buttons that have white on white, which makes them impossible to read. The icons are a very light gray. Let's move those to a blue. So you would go through, it will get started on this, it will rewrite the code, and then be able to go through and deploy that code, and you'll be able to see an updated preview. So here you can see it's made some of the changes. It's put in a lot more contrast. It's updated this to have a gradient. Again, I'd probably do an image here. Just that's not necessarily part of what I gave it in the instructions. But the better you can do on your PRD, the better your site is going to be. Starting out with a good base is the best way to eliminate headache and heartache and frustration as you go through this process. But as we scroll down, it's changed the icons, given them a little background. It's made everything a lot easier to see. I actually like this in the yellow. I maybe would make it a darker yellow so that this white shows up a little bit better. But the emergency plumbing is a great thing to have as a trust signal for Google that you do handle those kind of plumbing emergencies if that is something your business is excited about, if that's a way that you make money and bring in new clients. I like what the customers say. You can also use API keys. That's a little bit more complicated, but in Vercel, or if you use Cloudflare Workers, you can set up API secrets. Please do not put the API secrets in your code. If you have any questions, ask Claude, or I may do a future video on how to set up a more complicated site with some of those API things. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this for how simple it was. If you watch through the videos, I will have sped up some of the Claude code thinking. It doesn't take 30 seconds, but it should only take about 30 seconds of your time. If you get this started, go and work on some other stuff, and then come back, make sure that it's continuing to run. You'll need to, again, give it permission to do certain things. But it really shouldn't be a super labor-intensive process for you if you get your prompts right and you get that PRD crafted for your business specifically. Identifying your ideal customer profile and your unique value proposition are great places to start. And then identifying some sites that you want to use as inspiration. I would recommend using at least 3 that you can take from, rather than just 1 or 2 where it may create effectively a carbon copy of one. You don't want to steal, you want to, as Austin Kleon would say, steal like an artist. So take inspiration from different sites, some things that you like, combine them and make your own new site that works for your business. The last thing I'll say just quickly in passing is there are repositories of different UI elements. So if you want to add specific elements such as different cards or a certain graphic or animation, there are some places where you can go to find that. One that I really like is Aceternity UI, and it has all sorts of different animations. So you've got this 3D marquee effect where you could put your site and maybe some images of work you've done. You can do something like, a canvas reveal effect where you have some images that show up as you hover over them. There are card hover effects. This one's a little bit more simple, but does give your site just a little bit of that premium feel. So if you like one of these, you can go in, copy the code, put it in your project folder, and then reference that and have Claude figure out how to integrate that into your site in certain instances. I promise there is free hosting. The place that I would go for free hosting is Vercel. Claude, if you tell it you want to host on Vercel, you can get instructions from Claude on how to launch there. So if you come into Vercel, you can see in their pricing, they have the hobby that is free forever. If you come down, you can see what that includes. So you can see there's 1 million edge requests per month. That's not necessarily site visits, but some site visits will only count as one edge request. So 1 million is more than enough. 100 gigabytes per month is more than enough for most small businesses to get started. They can use this free. And then as you upgrade, if you start to run up against Vercel's limits for the hobby tier, you can, at that point, you should have the time and money to examine what hosting provider would work better for your business. But again, this will be good enough for most businesses for a very long time. And that's the way that Vercel makes their money, is they get in with you as a small business and hope that you grow and then grow into their bigger plans. And that's a win for you and a win for Vercel. So I just want to talk quickly about why this is important, just to wrap things up. The first thing is speed is money. Delay on load speed leads to 7% fewer conversions. And if your site is faster, Google rewards you with better rankings. So it's not only just the conversion side of things for your site, but it's also the ranking side of things in terms of getting people to your site. This allows you to create a mobile responsive site without some of the complications that exist when you create one in WordPress or Wix, where you're having to manually move around elements to make sure that they work on mobile. You can just ask Claude to make it mobile responsive, and it will go through and make all of the necessary changes to make your site look good. If you find specific elements, you can go into the Inspect tab, which is F12 or Function plus F12 on Mac, and copy that element. Just right-click on the element, click Inspect. You can copy that piece of code, paste it into Claude, and say, this one doesn't work, it's not mobile responsive, or it doesn't have the right colors, etc. Those all work for creating a truly mobile responsive site, and with 75% of searches happening on mobile, and especially with people going through Google Maps to find your business, they'll be doing it on their mobile device. So having a mobile first site can really improve your conversion rate. The last thing is creating a custom site for you. So you may have seen other people in your industry or other people outside your industry that have a site you really like, and rather than copying them, you can create a mishmash of that. It's like having a designer building your website for you so that you don't have to worry about having a designer and a developer. Claude Code works at that as that all in one, as long as you get your PRD right. So if you get your ICP and your UVP, your ideal customer profile, your unique value proposition, your branding, all put into that PRD, your site will turn out so much better than going in and trying to manually build it in a Wix or hiring someone who you'll just have to request a ton of edits from in a WordPress type of situation. Then there's the cost. So it does cost $20 a month or $17 if you're willing to commit to the year for Claude. We do Claude a lot. We will be going to that yearly model as soon as we settle on what plan we ultimately want. And it has benefits outside of just developing a website. But there are the costs associated with Claude, but you are eliminating hosting costs because of Vercel, and development costs, which could be up to $10,000 for a normal site. In fact, we had a client who just came to us to ask us to build a site for them, and they had gotten a quote from another WordPress development site for $25,000 for their website. You are saving thousands of dollars by doing it yourself, and if you can find someone like our company that does this for you, you also can save a lot of money and still get the same benefits without having the huge tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars that Apple or Airbnb have spent on developing out their sites. And then one thing we haven't really talked about is advanced features. So if you are wondering, can Claude Code create a site with insert feature here? It can build a site with online booking systems, with authentication for users to have a login, with service calculators and little apps. It can build before and after galleries, live chat integration, Google Maps integration. It can display reviews. It can have custom testimonials and case studies. It can have email capture forms. All of these run through different APIs, but Claude can give you the information to integrate those into your site. Of course, this is a lot more advanced, but it is something that may not be an option if you're hiring a traditional developer or trying to do it yourself without these AI tools. The time of AI is coming and has already started to hit us hard, with AI mode and Google affecting how people are interacting and people going to ChatGPT more than traditional Google searching to find the information that they need. Optimizing your site for AI, building your site so that it is useful as a website, not just as an information source, as information sources gets more and more centralized to those LLMs. Effectively, with a site, if you can explain it in English, Claude can code it. The local businesses that embrace these tools are going to dominate their local markets and really surpass those who are resisting the changes that are coming with AI. So here's what to do next. Try it yourself. Sign up for Claude and start with a single prompt. Try and work on creating that PRD, that project research document. Subscribe to this channel. Of course, I will be posting weekly tutorials on how to use Claude and AI to generate more business and increase the conversion rate of your business as you grow and as we move into and get more comfortable with how AI affects the landscape of local business. Comment below what kind of business you run. I'll personally suggest prompts for your industry. And if you want, there's a link in the description for my free prompt template. It's the exact prompt that we use to generate high converting local business sites. If all of this has been super overwhelming, and if you made it to this point in the video, it probably hasn't been, but if you want us to build and optimize your entire local presence, that's what we do at OpKey. Feel free to click the link in the bio to get in touch or comment, and I will respond to all the comments below. We use these exact tools and many others to help local businesses dominate their local markets. Remember, every day you wait is another day your competitors are starting to get ahead. The question isn't whether AI will transform web development or online presence or SEO. The fact is it already has. The question is whether you'll use it to grow your business or watch while other people do. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.